My name's Emily. I'm the marketing manager at Arbeit, and I'm just here to introduce our host and our presenter today. So, just a couple housekeeping things. Just double check that you're muted as we get started. And if you have any questions during the webinar, you can put them in the chat, and we'll be answering all your questions at the end. So, we'll just keep track of all the questions there. So, really quickly, I'm just going to introduce Kaitlyn. Kaitlyn is Arbeit's product manager. She has been with Arbeit for 3 years, and she leads the team strategy for bringing new products to the market. So she's been working with Arbeit in the collection industry for 3 years, and in her free time, she enjoys building e-commerce businesses and learning about business strategy. So I'm really excited to go over this presentation of 3 ways to accelerate growth and reduce costs with technology. So I'm just going to turn it over to Kaitlyn now. Thanks, Kaitlyn.
Hey, hey everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here today on this webinar. Again, we're going to be going over 3 ways to accelerate growth and reduce costs with our technology here.
Stop.
For those of you who aren't familiar with Arbeit, we are a contact solution provider for the collection industry, as well as a number of other industries as well. But we really started in collections, and our founders, they had owned agencies themselves, and at the time, they were really just frustrated with the technology out there on the market. So, you know what they say sometimes: if you want something done right, you just have to do it yourself, and that is exactly what they did, and that's exactly why we're all here at Arbeit today. So. Again, thank you, Emily, for introducing me. Yeah, I've been here for about 3 years. I work on our product team and kind of lead that team in developing our next generation of omni-channel contact solutions. So getting into things real quick, I just want to give you guys an agenda for the next 20 minutes or so, depending, give or take how fast I'm going to go through this. But basically, we're going to start with strategies for how your employees are, one of your biggest expenses, but they can be absolutely an asset. They don't have to be an expense. So great strategies there. After that, we are going to go over how to identify places in your collection process that you may be losing money and not even know it. And then finally, from there, we are going to talk about time spent on non-revenue generating activities and how you can kind of get that time back in your schedule to, spend it on time better spent. So whether you've been in the industry for 30 years or 30 days, we're really hoping that you can leave today with some actionable tips on how you can improve your business and bring in more revenue. So finally, before we dive in completely to our solutions today, I just wanted to talk about some of our Arbeit products here to get everybody on the same page. I know some of you might use one of our products and some of you might not use any, or maybe you use all of them. So no matter where you are in that cycle, just making sure that we're, all on the same page there. So our very first product that we ever released was Arbeit Dialer. This is a standard broadcast link back dialer. I know some people out there call it the Press One dialer, but very simple to use, very straightforward. You basically upload a list, you create a message, press start, and from there it is going to start placing calls to your consumers with the intention of really generating those inbound calls and that inbound traffic back into your office. From there, we wanted to make another solution because, of course, inbound calls are great, but they're not that great if you don't have a way of taking those calls. So that's when we decided to make a standard voice solution. It's going to have all the great functionality that you would normally expect with a voice over IP service, as well as some other great features in terms of soft phones and routing strategies and feature codes that we can do to you to really customize it to fit your specific workflow. The really great thing there is because we are a dialer provider and we have so much traffic going through our network, we're actually able to offer this voice service at a lot lower price than a lot of companies who just offer a voice solution. So always great to be able to pass those savings back on to you guys. Following that, after voice, we wanted to create a solution that addressed that annoying little thing called the TCPA, and that's where our product Arbeit Click was born. So, Click is going to be a completely compliant solution that has 3 steps of human intervention on every call, as well as getting rid of the dreaded 3-second pause. Now, the reason that this was so important to us to get rid of that, when we were looking through case law, the thing that we saw coming up over and over again for not only why people were getting brought into court, but also why they were ultimately losing their cases was this 3-second pause. So really important there. But the great thing about this product is not only does it help you stay compliant when you're making your calls, but it also helps you stay productive. Agents are going to be able to make an upwards of 200 calls per agent per hour with this product. So I don't know if whoever said you can't have it all, but they probably did not try Click yet. And then finally, our very last solution, our most recent one that we've come out with almost exactly a year to the date, is Arbeit Connect. Now, the solution is one that we came out with when we identified, in the wake of COVID, that so many companies were transitioning to remote work for the first time. And I think in our industry, we, talk so much about the importance of communication and having great communication with consumers. But what we don't always talk about is having great communication internally. And Connect really helps with this. It lets you do inter-office chat. You can do video conferencing, screen sharing, plus a whole bunch more. And it's all built on top of a standard soft phone. So not, a great reason why it came out, but it was a great solution to the problem. And I know it's helped a lot of our clients be able to kind of ease that transition from being in the office to being remote, which is always great to hear. So now that you're a little more familiar with all our products, we can kind of get into the meat and potatoes of today's webinar and start with our first problem that we want to address, which is going to be this idea that agents are one of agencies' biggest expenses that they have. We hear people talking over and over again about how important, looking at things like RCP, right party contact rates are, and connection rates, and managing compliance. But really looking at where you're spending so much money is a huge place to start, and can be a great strategy for kind of improving your bottom line. So if you don't believe me, TransUnion recently put out this great state of the industry report for 2020, which if you have not read it yet, highly, highly recommend it. If you're a data nerd like me, you'll absolutely love it. Super long, lots of good stuff in there. But one of the polls that was in there was this one specifically, and it was polling agencies about what their biggest expense in their day-to-day was. And overwhelmingly, you can see that these agencies felt that their employee strategy were a major expense to their overall workflow. So what we really want to do here is always build tools that are going to take those agencies from a place of being an expense for you and bring them into a place of being an asset. So how do we do that? Well, in my opinion, it all starts with training. We always say here, hiring can be hard. Believe me, we're in the process of hiring. It's always a process, but training does not have to be. Training can be an easy thing. And one of my favorite features that we offer is on our product Click that really makes training super easy. So right inside there, you have the option when an agent is on a call, you can listen into that call and really just hear what's going on, hear what's happening with the consumer. The consumer does not know that you're there, but you can just monitor how things are going. And if you feel at any point during the call that, maybe things are going south, maybe you want to offer a little more coaching, you can always whisper in their ear, which is super great in terms of getting that employee up to speed. And in the event where you absolutely need to take over the call, we also offer warm and cold transfers on this product, so they can send it back to you if that is appropriate. Now, while you're looking at the screen, you'll have information to the consumer that they're on the phone with, all their information from their name to their phone number to their account field. So in this scenario where you need some more context and need some more information, you can take that account number directly, copy it into your collection software, and pull that information up so that you have it at your fingertips, and again, can kind of just coach them through the rest of that call. Now, once training is over and that employees kind of transitioned into being a more normalized part of your collection floor, you might not need to sit behind them for every single call, but you still probably want to have an idea of not only how they're doing, but how your agents as a whole are doing and how productive they're staying. So this brings us into our live monitoring feature on Click. And with this feature, you're going to be able to have a very quick overview of how productive your people are staying and make sure that they're keeping up with their work. So in here you'll see 4 key metrics. It's going to include the overall time that they're spending in calls, their clicking efficiency, which is basically just going to show if they have calls available to click, are they clicking on them? You will also see their total time logged in as well as the time that they're spending in between calls. So just like when you were in the office, you'll be able to really get a good feel for how productive your people are being, even if you are still remote. And the good news is, if you are in the office, something really fun that we see some agencies like to do is they actually go out, they buy the biggest TV they can find. I don't know, maybe they go Black Friday shopping, and they take that and they put that screen right in the center of their collection floor, and they display the screen on there. And what that does is it allows the agents to see how they're stacking up against each other, kind of allows for that great competitive spirit against your agents, and really gamifies the whole process to make the day a lot more fun, which is always awesome. And we're super passionate about gaming here, so it's fun to be able to offer that aspect in our products as well. Now, this kind of brings us into our final tip for making the most out of your employees, and that's really creating an environment that they're going to enjoy working in. If we look at the cost of employee turnover, you'll see that typically 1/3 of that employee's salary is what you're going to be losing as an employer between, the time that you spent training them, the time that you're losing in productivity, all that stuff is really going to add up super fast. So with that said, creating an environment that they're going to want to stay in is so important. And, I don't think too many people grow up dreaming about being collection agents. But with that said, in the right environment where they have the tools to make money, people can stay for life. And I think that that's awesome. And here at Arbeit, we want to build tools that not only empower agencies to make money, but also empower agents to have a job that's fruitful and also fun. So, yeah, great there. And it's great to see that people really enjoy using this product on the agent side as well. So we addressed your employees and how to make sure that they're being as productive as possible. However, now we're going to go into some tips and places that your business may be losing money without you even knowing about it. And the first thing that we're going to talk about there directly is connection rate. So just like everyone, I love a great deal. However, a great deal is not that great of a deal if you end up losing more money than you were saving in the first place. And unfortunately, with that said, that's something that we see happen a lot with people who are shopping for dialers, particularly budget shopping for dialers. So, what seems to happen a lot is someone might see a super low price on a dialer and they sign up. But what they don't realize is happening in the background is that that connection rate's really low, which is resulting in things like lower liquidation rates. You're burning through your portfolio super fast. And overall, your agents are getting frustrated. You have the dialer on, they're expecting these inbound calls and nothing's happening. Like, you're not generating traffic. So, this is why when you're shopping around for these dialing services, you should always ask the company about the quality of the carriers that they're placing your calls over, because it's super important. Now, at this point, you may be thinking to yourself, well, that's great, but I, don't have a degree in network engineering. I'm not Elon Musk. How in the world am I supposed to know the difference between a good carrier network and a bad one? Well, that's why we put together this list of questions to kind of help you ask next time when you're evaluating vendors, and make sure that the person that you're signing up for is really offering you a service that is going to be super profitable for you. So the first thing you're going to want to know with these vendors is the carrier that you're using conversational, or is it a dialer carrier? For conversational carriers specifically, there's going to be very specific lists of KPIs that these providers have to meet, which inherently are going to make those calls be a lot more stable and make those carriers a lot more stable. So when evaluating those, if you can find somebody with conversational carriers, that is always a plus. From there, asking if they have carrier redundancy. What this is going to do is it's going to ensure that if your call fails on one of the carriers, that it continues to get placed on different carriers to try and increase the likelihood of that call actually making it through. I know one thing that people worry about with this is if that means that a consumer might be getting multiple calls, and that's not going to happen. The only time that this comes into play is if a call for whatever reason fails on the first carrier. You're just going to have that fail safe there to make sure that it's going through somewhere else, which is awesome. From there, you're going to want to ask them a little bit about when this code for their dialer was written. Some of these codes out there, unfortunately, they're kind of dinosaurs. And with that said, a super old piece of code is just not going to perform the way that more modern code is. So finding out when that code was written can be super important in kind of getting an idea for how well your calls are going to be placed. And then finally from there, asking if they allow junk traffic on their network. Now, that might seem like a weird question to ask, and there's actually a better way that you can figure that out kind of secretly, and that's understanding what the minimums that they allow on their network are. And kind of the place that you're going to want to see is if they're allowing less than a 30-second minimum, chances are they probably are allowing some junk traffic on that network, and that's negatively going to impact things like your connection rates. So with all that said, I know there's a lot to take in there. The good news is if you're not sure and you're not sure how to evaluate these people, Arbeit, we do check all those boxes. So we're going to make sure that you are getting the best connection rate possible, taking all those things into consideration. With that said, what we're typically seeing for connection rates on our dialer campaigns is in the neighborhood of about 68%. We also try and do evaluations of other dialers on the market, and we're seeing these evaluations come back with as low as 35% connection rates. Now, maybe you're thinking there and sitting there thinking to yourself, well, what impact does that actually have on my business? Well, when you're running, let's just say you're running 100,000 calls on a campaign, what that's actually going to translate into is 33,000 extra opportunities when you're using a good dialer to be able to make money on. Now that is huge. I don't know about you, but being able to talk potentially to 33,000 extra consumers is something that has a huge return. So I really encourage you, next time that you're evaluating these vendors and trying to find somebody that you want to use for a dialing service, really just making sure that you're asking these questions up front and understanding what connection rate that you're going to be able to get with them. Now, the next area that we're going to talk about where you may be losing some money or not even know about it or opening yourself up to risk is, of course, compliance. Now, I don't know about you, but there's not too many things that I find less fun than researching compliance. And for that reason, that's why we try and put as many compliance features built into our systems as possible so that you can just kind of put that on easy mode and you don't have to worry about figuring these things out on yourself. So with that said, we already talked about how on Click you're going to have the 3-second pause and human intervention taken out on all those calls. So that's kind of going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of compliance. However, some other things that we offer both on Click and our dialer, you're going to see that you have calls. So if, let's say your agency is in New York, when you're trying to place calls maybe to California, it's going to take into account what time zone that they're in based on the area code of their phone number. And if it's too early to call them, it's not going to place that call to make sure that you're staying safe. To take that a step further inside of Click, you can actually even filter this down more based on the person's zip code. So somebody like me, for example, I'm originally from New York, but I moved to Arizona. I still have my New York phone number. So it's going to take a combination of both that address and that phone number to find out the safest time to be able to call that person to, again, just make sure that you're staying safe, staying compliant. Finally, from there, anytime that you're uploading a list or renewing a call list, you'll have the option to restrict out numbers. So it's not duplicating numbers that might be on your list and calling them multiple times. It's you can kind of ramp that up or down for whatever fits your process. But again, just making sure that by default you're really staying safe and not calling people who you shouldn't be calling. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, we're actually in the process of also building our omni-channel platform. And really our goal with this platform even further is to add more of these compliance features that, again, are just going to take that guesswork out and hopefully make all of your lives easier. So you can comply, with the TCPA and the FDCPA and the CFPB's new rules. So With that said, I always have to do my shameless plug here. I am our product manager, and we are always so interested in hearing what is the most important to you in terms of not just compliance, but features in general, and really hearing about what struggles you're facing in the day-to-day. So if you're ever interested in talking to us, please don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to chat and understand more about what is most important to you going forward in your workflow. That brings us into our final tip for plugging up those holes where you may be losing money. And this one is going to be on your number strategy. Now, over the past few years with the rollout of Stir Shaken and number labeling and all that good stuff, you have to be more diligent than ever in making sure that your calls are actually getting answered and that your numbers have not been labeled. Now, there's a ton of great products out there on the market that can help you identify if this is happening. Numerical is one of them. I know they do a really great job. And if you're interested in one of those solutions, don't hesitate to reach out. We can kind of point you in the right direction for a solution that would be the best fit for what you're looking for. But one of your first lines for defense in identifying if your numbers have a problem and if potentially they have been marked is in starting with tracking your KPIs. So one of the best ones is looking at your connection rate. Again, you can pull this right from your CDR reports across all of our products and really just having baselines and looking at the trends for these numbers. In this scenario, if you do see a major drop off, this can typically be a good sign that potentially your number may have been labeled and may need to be swapped out. Now, the great news here is if you're just swapping out a single toll-free or local number, we can typically do this in a matter of minutes. So, you can go from not having a number that's labeled and it's not working that well to being back in business and making super clean compliant calls super fast. So that's always great. Additionally, if you're looking for a little more penetration on your campaigns, we also offer what are called dynamic caller IDs. What these are going to do is match your outbound caller ID to the area code that is closest to that of the consumer that you're calling. So it's just going to look like a call from a local phone number. And when we ran a study on this, it's been shown to increase the lift rates by almost 14% on campaigns, which is awesome. So again, if you're kind of looking to get a little more out of your campaigns, those dynamic caller IDs can be a great add-on there. Okay, and one bonus strategy that I just wanted to talk about when it comes to the reputation of your numbers specifically is to periodically do a Google search of your numbers and see what comes up first. I don't know about any of you, but anytime I get a phone call from a number that I'm not familiar with, the first thing I do is not pick up the phone. The first thing I do is I turn to Google and I Google the number and I try and see like, who is this person? I try and find out if it's a scam, what's going on. And I think that this is something really common across consumers as well. So, with that said, one of the things that we know is happening out there is a lot of plaintiff attorneys are actually going out and they're proactively taking ads out against your numbers to try and gain clients on their end. Additionally, if it's a number that you've had in circulation for a long time, there may be negative comments on it, there may be negative publishings on it. So, really taking a bigger approach and making sure that you're taking back control of what's coming up first when people are Googling that number. So doing things like publishing your numbers on your website can be a great start. And again, even considering taking out a Google ad on your number can be a really good strategy to make sure that you have more control over what's coming up on those Google searches. Now, our conversion optimization specialist, Eleanor, she is the master of all things Google, all things SEO. I know those things can be a little scary for people at first. So if you're not really sure how to approach these strategies, we actually put together a complete guide on how not only to handle ads for numbers, but also do a complete analysis of your agency's online presence. So again, if you're interested in that guide, feel free to reach out to us and we can certainly pass it along to you. Now, this brings us into our final strategy for today, which is going to be buying back your time and spend it on more important tasks. One of my biggest rules to live by in life is that you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And with that said, I think that's why we really want to encourage our agencies to improve their strategies for freeing up their time and again, just spending that time on more revenue generating activities. So this, of course, starts with your agents. And being productive with them. So we had mentioned earlier on our product click how those agents are able to make an upwards of 200 calls per agent per hour while staying compliant. That's awesome. But something that seems to be pretty common is that people who want to stay compliant have this idea that they can't use a dialer, and that's not true. It's not about the tools itself. It's more just about how you're using it and what you're loading into that dialer. So a really great strategy that we've seen other people use here is to use Click as your first touch on campaigns. Reach out to people, validate your numbers from there. See if you can get compliance on, or pardon me, consent on those numbers, and kind of from there reassess what you want to load into that dialer. Additionally, on Click, when you're uploading a list, you even have the option to pull out landlines specifically from that list. So from there, you can upload that, of course, to a dialer, and you don't have to worry about calling those landlines on an ATDS, which is awesome. So um, again, just another way using that dialer to kind of add more of a supplemental effort to the calls that your agents are making manually, which can be really helpful. The good thing about our dialer as well is that there is no minimums on it. So even if you're only using it once a month or once in a while, you don't have to worry about being roped into contracts or having any minimums. You can kind of just use it when you want and not use it when you don't want to use it. Um, and then finally, that brings us into, freeing up your time. Your time, of course, is incredibly valuable. Thank you again for spending time with us here today. It means a lot to us, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day. With that said, there's still things that you can do in your day to free up. I know one of the things that we hear oftentimes from people is that they're dealing with all these vendors, and I know with dealing with multiple vendors, it can be really exhausting to keep up those relationships and know what's happening. That's why it's great that you can combine down multiple of your vendors into one product with us here at Arbeit and really solidify things to keep it simple. Additionally, on our Click and Dialer platforms, you can typically have those set up within an hour. So you can really go from having kind of a slow manual process to being this well-oiled collecting machine within a couple of minutes, honestly, which is awesome. The even cooler part about that is if you want, we can do training with your agents directly. So once those strategies get put in place, then everyone is in the same loop and you guys can kind of hit the ground running with that. Finally, well, we hope you never have to call us for support. If you need us, we're always here. We're always excited to hear from you. And our average pickup time on support calls is typically 9 seconds or less. So you're not going to have to sit on hold waiting for somebody to get in touch with you. And when you do get in touch with somebody here, we're still a small company and we typically always know the situations that you're facing in your agency specifically. So we can get right into the solution for you and kind of treat you with, all the um, all the help that you need right off the bat, which is always great. So, with all of that said, again, thank you all so much for joining us here today and for spending some of your time with us. We did want to offer you something special for the people that were here, which is that if any of these products that we talked about and any of these solutions that we talked about sounded interesting to you throughout the course of this webinar, we are offering a $200 credit for anybody who signs up for one of these additional products and spends the next 60 days on them. So if you're interested in doing that, of course, let us know. You can reach out to any of us afterwards and we'll be happy to get you more information. But now I just wanted to open it up real quick to any questions from anyone here and answer those for you guys.
Thanks, Caitlin. Okay, so if you do have any questions, you can either unmute or just put them in the chat, but we did have a couple questions come in. So the first one is whether or not our products can integrate with CRMs.
That's a great question. So we have a ton of CRMs that we do offer integrations with, a couple that come to mind off of that. I know Simplicity, I know CMAX, we offer integrations with. Ultimately, for some of those little more niche collection softwares, it comes down to if they're offering the ability for us to integrate in, we can kind of do webhooks and things like that. So it really just depends on the software that you're using, but we're always super excited to have new integrations and work with new companies. So really the best way to find out is just reach out and we can kind of take it from there.
Awesome. And then the last question I have is when you start using a combination of products or even just one of the products, how long would you say it typically takes to start seeing results from using that?
Yeah, great question. So, with some of our products, think it's almost instant that, particularly if you started with a really manual strategy, maybe you're just calling people from a standard phone and you implement a solution like clicker dialer. Again, it's like almost instant that you can just see that day go from kind of slow and you're not making that many calls and you're not collecting that much to really just completely changing the way that your agent operates. So really great to see there. And it's always really exciting when we're doing those free trials with people and we get the calls saying that, it just completely changed the way that they operate. So yeah, definitely can see results super fast with these products.
For sure. Okay, are there any more questions before we wrap up? Oh, here's one. If Click doesn't integrate with a certain CRM, what are the options if there are options?
Yeah, great question. So for Click specifically, we kind of offer two versions of it on the agent side. We have a full screen option, which in that version, you're going to see any information that you map out, and you have a ton of fields that you can map out there. So some people kind of like to take the approach where they map out a bunch of information there and the agents kind of work off that full screen. Conversely, we have a mini version, and what that is it kind of just sits in the top, I mean, whatever whatever side corner you want it to sit in, and you place your calls from there. Once that call gets connected, you can easily just click on button in the bottom corner. It's going to copy that account number to your clipboard. And what you can do from there is just paste it right into your collection software and just work from your collection software like normal. So really the only thing that you're missing out on there is going to be the screen pop and kind of like automatically recording some of that information. But we have a ton of people who do it that way and it works out great for them. So there's certainly options out there that we can offer if we don't have that integration built yet.
Amazing. Okay. Are there any more questions from anyone before we wrap up?
One quick question. Um, in order to use Click, you wouldn't have to have your VoIP system, right? You can have your own personal VoIP and still use Click as a service.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's interesting.
Any other questions out there? Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much for joining myself and Emily today. Again, hopefully you got to learn something new. And yeah, if you have any questions following this that you want to follow up on, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you. But otherwise, hope you guys all have a great rest of your week. And I'm sure we'll talk to you all soon.